There we go.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Anna from V.Mora, and I'm here with Allison. Allison, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Allison Howman. I've been marketing and sales manager here at V.Mora, and I have a lot of curious questions for Anna because I met her in such a conundrum kind of way, and her company has been such an amazing point for so many designers really looking for answers as to how to start a fashion line, how to go about it, what factories to reach out to, and everything like that. So I think we're just going to jump right in. And the first question is, what inspired you to start V.Mora, and how did it come to fruition? What was kind of like the origin story?
Yeah, so I went to school for fashion design and graduated, and then worked as a buyer at a small boutique in Chicago, which was really great experience of like seeing the business aspect of everything. And from there, I worked at a custom design shop. And there's a woman who taught me to sew and do pattern work really, really well, like custom couture work. It was rough.
Wow.
She was like the what is the Karate Kid guy, the where he
Oh, uh,
or Mr. Miyagi or whatever,
yeah,
where
yeah, yeah.
she really, that is how she trained me. I remember crying and
Oh no.
calling me a baby and threatened to stab me with pins to remember. So like it was an amazing experience. That is how she showed love, and she taught me how to sew. And from there, I was able to start my own clothing company, and it was called V.Mora. And I did all my
Nice.
own patterns and samples, which is great because it gives you like the head start of being able to develop those first samples without it costing a ton of money.
Mhm.
But in order to kind of make ends meet, I was working with independent designers in Chicago to also have their patterns and their samples done. And what
Mm.
I discovered was I really loved connecting with the designers and being able to help them grow. I had direct connection to my clients. When I was selling my clothing line, I didn't feel connected to the customers who bought. I was selling
Yeah.
to boutiques. And for me, I just got a lot more gratification out of working with the individual clients. So I also had experience with buying. So I was helping with preparing for trade shows and helping with the sourcing of the fabric. And it really just evolved from there. I did 2 seasons of my own collection. And on the third season, I just didn't, I kept procrastinating. I kept procrastinating. And then finally I was like, I don't want to do this. That's
Yeah.
like how I figured, like, I don't want to do this.
Mhm.
So I just focused on working with other clients.
I would love to see pictures of your collection and everything like that and what it was like. Maybe, maybe we can find them somehow, some way.
They're
But
out there for sure.
they're
Yeah.
out there? Cool. I'm excited. I'm excited to see them. Yeah, like it's sometimes with, as a creative, it can be tiring to constantly, make stuff all the time. And I'm so grateful that you're passionate about also creating education for people because
Yeah.
it was a really needed thing. Nowadays there's a couple other companies, but I remember you telling me, I think it was that you were definitely one of the first a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah. There weren't people that did what I did.
Yeah.
Um, it was in 2008 that I started. So there were pattern makers, there were sample makers, there were factories, but kind of having like this one place to go for everything start to finish was
Mhm.
really a new concept. And I didn't go into the business having that idea. It was more of just grew to fruition as I was as I was growing the company.
Mhm. So I wanted to ask you, what would describe kind of the early days of V.Mora and the challenges that you faced? So you were kind of doing some of your own collection while you were doing this consulting. When, like, were there any difficulties at that stage, or were you just kind of like beta testing the consulting?
I would say I didn't know I was consulting. Well, what happened is a client would come by and pick up their patterns and samples, and then they would stay for like an hour or 2
Mhm.
hours. to pick my brain. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, I probably should be charging for my time because this is consulting. So I was doing it before I realized that that was what was happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, the consulting again, like it happened. I just always like followed my intuition and what I liked doing. I'd say some of the challenges were there's this idea that you should always be working. If you're going to
Mm.
start your own business, it's going to be hard and you're going to have to work around the clock. And I did that to a downfall, to a point of like, I
Mm.
put myself in danger. I remember I took a deadline and that wasn't realistic, but I took it because I like wanted the money and I wanted
Yeah.
to say yes. And I was driving on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago after pulling an all-nighter in the morning,
Mm.
sewing buttons while I was driving.
Oh my God.
Like, if you know me, you also know I'm not a good driver.
Oh no.
So like that was a breaking point for me where I was like, I had someone say to me, like, you're either saying yes to things you should say no to,
Yeah.
or you're not managing your time properly. So that was a big eye opener for me to say, like, I need to set boundaries. And if I'm not taking care of myself, I can't take care of my business. So that in my coaching, I'm a big advocate for like, what do you have to do to take care of yourself first so that your
Mhm.
business can thrive? Because you'll end up self-sabotaging if you haven't slept, you haven't eaten, you're not taking care of yourself. So
Yeah.
that has to come first.
Yeah, I remember that being kind of the first component of one of the first sessions with you is, describing, hey, what do you actually need from your life right now? Like,
Yeah.
is this even possible to start a fashion line, or do you need to cut back in certain ways? Do you need to, hire out in certain ways, like including us, right? So we can do a lot of work for people, but some people don't know how much work it takes to actually start something. And so, you need to assert boundaries very early on, and that's
Yeah.
also kind of what we work with designers with is some of that prep work for entering into this big project, because it is definitely a big project.
Yeah.
So some of the hurdles you would say is like managing your time, managing boundaries, and everything like that.
Yeah.
um and then, like, were there any challenges setting up the company and kind of going from that stage where you were creating your own clothing to consulting? Did you have like a transition period that was difficult or anything like that?
I was always doing both. So there
Okay.
wasn't like a clear cutoff until it came to my third season. And I was like, I'm not doing the designing anymore. I'm only going
Yeah.
to be doing the consulting. And that was because like I was having so much fun doing it. And I had enough clients that it was like keeping me busy.
Mhm.
I would say that hiring my first employees was a challenge. Like I hired a business coach who really helped me make those decisions, like when I needed to hire an assistant. It was really hard for me because it was like, but this is work I can do and I can save money.
Yeah.
But it was like she put it in perspective of like, well, if you had 3 hours of your life back because you're not, I don't know, doing the things that an assistant would do, what could you do that would better your business? Or how could you be more the face of your company? Or how could you make more
Mhm.
money for the business? So that
Mhm.
first leap to hiring an assistant and hiring people to help was tough. And then even getting a space. So I was working in my apartment, and getting my first studio space was a jump because it was money that I was like, but I don't need to spend it. But
Got
the
it.
caliber of clients that then would hire me because I had a space versus working in my living room was different
Yeah.
because I came across as a professional. So yeah, just kind of taking those leaps of faith in the beginning to say, like, looking at what I can put out instead of like what it's taking,
Mhm.
always tough. Like, well, if I hire this person, if I get this studio space, I have to put X amount of dollars out the door, but like we've got to focus in on what can come back from it.
Yeah, and I noticed that too with a lot of our designers that come to us. They're like, "I do all our pattern, I do all the pattern work. I do everything myself." And I'm just like, "Oh no, like how can you ever grow? How can you ever make more money and expand your brand without finding a way to consolidate or, you know, fend things off to people, including, us at V.Mora and everything like that." So, but it definitely takes a lot of trust, and that's kind of why we're here, is to build that trust with people, or
Yeah.
relay people to someone that they can trust, like a vendor or anything like that as well.
Yeah, you have to like the only reason that V.Mora is successful is because they've been able to delegate and I've been able to hire a team to help. Otherwise,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been able to expand or do anything because I'd be
Yeah.
doing all the work myself. I don't do patterns and samples anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we had talked about it, how you definitely used to,
Yeah,
and to even hire someone in-house can be, difficult too if
yeah,
it's not all season around.
right.
But we definitely have some amazing contacts with that. And then as for like motivation, were there any difficult times during your experience of, in maybe the early years of motivating yourself where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work out, and stuff like that?
Definitely. Yeah. I remember in the beginning, it was like I was working, 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 and it was still like I was still reaching to like make ends meet. And
Mm,
um, I couldn't pay my rent again. So it was like
mhm.
another month where I was like, where am I getting my rent? And
Yeah.
I remember I've shared this story and people like years later will come back to me and say, like, I remember that story. So I always share it, even though it's a little embarrassing, but I was on my knees at my coffee table sobbing. And I was like,
Oh.
this like voice came over me and was like, you can cry for 10 more minutes. After 10 minutes, you're going to find some work, you're going to make some money, and you're going to keep moving. So I did that. I like looked at the clock and I was like, I'm going to have a little pity party for 10 minutes. I'll cry, I'll do whatever. After the 10 minutes, I'm going to figure something out. So
Mhm.
I went on to, at the time we used Craigslist, which I know sounds really scary now, but there were some neighbors that needed curtains sewn for their house. There was someone looking for a model to let them cut their hair and take photos. So I did that. And there was like a third random sewing job of like alterations that were needed. So I was able to pull rent together from that. And then a few weeks later, it might have even been like later that week, there was a fabric vendor who had heard my name a few times and was kind of just like watching my work and like hearing about me. And then all of a sudden he had like gotten enough experience and like seen enough people that he started referring my name. And then the lead
Oh,
like started pouring in. It was Jay from
Jay.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
We love Jay.
I know Jay
Um,
Habertman from so long ago. But yeah, so he started referring my name because he had seen enough of his clients happy with
mhm.
their patterns and samples. So that's really what turned my business around. And I didn't know that he was
Mhm.
watching. I didn't know that was right around the corner. So in that moment, had I quit, I wouldn't have ever known.
Yeah. Do we wanna give a quick shout out to Jay and his, do you know what his website is?
Um,
It's like
I never can remember website, but Jay Abertman from Chicago. I'm sure if
Jay
you
Aberman from Chicago. If you
Google
Google
that.
him, you'll be able to find him, and he connects us, quite well, and then he's also a fabric source as well for us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So he has gosh, like 15 lines of fabric where small minimums, five yards or less for
Mhm.
their first for their MOQs. So they're great for
Awesome.
designers. Yeah.
Yeah, and definitely, like, new designers need, small MOQs. That's kinda like the number one question is, "How do I get a hold of fabrics?"
Yeah.
We definitely get that a lot at V.Mora.
Yes.
So what do you feel like sets you and essentially V.Mora apart from other consulting companies that are kind of popping up here and there and everything?
I would say we've been in the business since 2008. So that alone, like the amount of experience we have, we've launched every type of product you can think of. But what really sets us apart is having those really strong buying relationships with the vendors, with the label makers, with the factories. We've vetted these people. We've been working with them over a decade. So when you come to us, like, you can really trust the people that are in our network, which takes decades to
Yeah.
to build. And we're completely forthright and transparent with those vendors. So you'll know then, you'll be able to order from them directly in the future. Like, we are, it just feels better to like be open with everything of like how we're building your business. It doesn't, yeah, if I were to hold that and then everything I built for you, you couldn't use in the future, would be tough, I think.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of companies will do like brand package deals where you get like one or two different styles and they keep they keep all the vendors behind, closed doors.
Yeah.
And then they give you the products and then, they kind of charge every single time that you want to make more or make something different or anything like that. So we're, here at V.Mora, we're really transparent about, okay, these are our vendors, you can definitely work with them and everything like that afterwards. Or even if you're looking for a new vendor, we can supply that as well. So yeah, that's also what I really love about V.Mora as well, is just that transparency, because it is like tempting in a business to kind of keep everything closed off and to try to make people pay for that access. But you
Engage.
know yeah, in the long term, we want our designers to be successful. And so how can you be successful without knowledge of who your vendors are?
Yeah.
So so that was definitely important for us. And then how do you ensure that V.Mora provides kind of the quality of services and insider expertise that designers won't find anywhere else?
I would say just like really keeping an eye on the projects and making sure that my staff feel comfortable coming to me for questions, but at the same time, like, trusting them to know when that is.
Yeah.
So I also pride myself, like, we don't have a high turnaround with our staff. So creating an environment where the employees can really learn from me and always be an extension of me when they're talking to the clients.
Mhm. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of trust, and we, working in V.Mora, myself and my coworkers, Catherine and Ashley and everything like that, we represent
Right.
V.Mora and we represent Anna. And so like the way we conduct ourselves is, as professional as we can be. And we try to handle any sort of issues that come up to the best of our abilities.
Yeah.
And yeah. Um, so something that you've mentioned before, in passing or in writings or everything like that is paving your own roads and also breaking the rules in so many different ways. So can you describe an instance in which V.Mora has encompassed that?
Yeah, I would definitely say the very first time I did a manufacturing tour
Mhm.
was breaking the rules, paving my own way. Now a lot of people do manufacturing tours, but it was like where I was getting a group of people together. I rented a bus. This was in Chicago. We all got on the bus and like drove around to these different factories so that so that the designers could be on the floor. They could meet the factories. They could work with the factories. Um, and see what it was like to have a clothing line and really like be on the floor of these factories. So that was unheard of. I got a lot of pushback from people in the industry of like, why are you
Mm.
sharing manufacturers? And like, why are you sending these like newbie designers that have no idea what they're doing onto the factory floor? But really, I was doing it for the designers, and we had a lot of fun. It was a great place to network, and the factories got work out of it. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
one of the very first that I got a lot of kickback from it, I guess. Yeah.
I didn't know that because I participated in a manufacturing tour a little bit later than everything started. But I didn't realize that there would be pushback, and I
Yeah.
can kind of understand where, they're coming from. But at the same time, it's like if they don't want to get money or participate, they don't have to be necessarily included in the tour.
Well, it
Um,
was like from other kind of consultants, I guess, like
got it, got it.
from other,
Other people in the industry.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the
And
designers themselves. They loved it.
yeah. And now it's like it's needed because, everything is online, but sometimes how do you trust things that are just
Not
online?
everything is online. Well, think of
Yeah,
all the factories that do not have websites.
that's
So
true.
many factories.
Yeah.
It's
Or they
like,
don't answer their phones.
or they don't, yeah,
Or they ignore your emails, so if it's
they don't have an email. So
yeah.
yeah, there's still a lot of the industry living in 1984. So
Yeah, and we have people, like, on the ground that can, like, kinda door knock, if you will, in
exactly.
the fashion district and, see who's actually there.
Yeah.
So and then how would you say, you maintain a balance between, being bold, being rule breaking, but also, ensuring quality and, dedication to clients and also, V.Mora?
I would say I always trust my gut. Like
Mhm.
that's the one thing is like being doing this as long as I have, like I can feel when something I'm doing is like it feels like it's off grain. It feels forced. It
Got it.
feels like something's wrong.
Yeah.
So now I just at this point I just know to trust it because the times that I haven't, things they haven't gone well. So yeah,
Mhm.
just trusting my gut.
Yeah. And I totally get it, like, our guts kind of know what's right and what's
Yeah.
wrong, and especially for an entrepreneur, you really do have to have a feeling and a pathway that things are gonna work out in a way, and understand, if it's not going that direction, maybe it's, not meant to be in some ways,
Yeah.
definitely. And then what would you say is the most rewarding moment or success story of V.Mora, since its inception? You can name a couple.
Oh gosh, there's been so many. I would say like what I'm most proud of is creating a team and being a leader for my designers and my team. Um,
Mhm.
I think that I know now that that's what's really helped the backbone of V.Mora and the
Yeah.
success of the company is like being able to support my staff in feeling confident in what they do enough that they'll go out and make decisions and act as an extension of me, but then also trust and like come to me when they have questions or issues to like make it better. So like without that, I wouldn't be here. So I'd say like,
Mhm.
and when I first started V.Mora, it was like all my friends. We were like all the same age. I was 28 when I started V.Mora. My staff was like my age or maybe a little younger. And as I've grown, I'm like no longer 28. But there's like a shift of like, oh, this team they're not necessarily my friends, but they're people that I'll mentor, people that I'll help grow. So
Mhm. Yeah, I know myself, like, you've given me a lot of, like, opportunities within the company to learn different things, like, even from, like, P&Ls and accounting, and, like, there's so many things
a
that
great opportunity, or did I just force you? I don't.
I
And you
take it
I had more confidence. I was like, you can do this.
I take it as an opportunity
Yeah.
because, to be honest, like, a lot of companies won't even show you, even small companies, they won't even show you the back end of how everything works, and I think that, it's such a good education for people to understand the functionalities of any type of business, and it's just not talked about, and so I definitely really appreciate that, experience from you a lot,
I'd say my
so
transparency is not only with my clients, it's with you guys.
yeah, yeah, you're definitely very transparent
Right.
about everything.
A little too much, but
It's
whatever.
okay, it's okay. I think, it's something that I definitely respect, so,
Good.
and then have you I mean, maybe this could be, like, the COVID answer. Have you had any setbacks or challenges as of the recent years? Maybe not the beginning years, but, like, maybe the
Yeah,
past 5,
I would
10
say by
years?
the time COVID came, I was like, been here, done this, will get through it. It's like that's the thing about being a business owner is there are always going to be hardships. There's
Yeah,
always going to be difficulties. There's always going to be something else to figure out, somewhere else to pivot. Like I used to think like once I get through this, then everything will stay the same forever and it'll be perfect. And like then something else would happen. And then
yeah,
finally it was just like, oh, this is owning a company. Like
yeah,
that's what I tell my clients too. When something goes really wrong and they're like, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. I'm like, get used to it. Like
Tuesday, right?
as you grow, the problems only get bigger, like
Yeah, yeah.
there are bigger issues than, the smaller issues. So like that's part of being a business owner, is like being able to deal with hardships and how to pivot and how to get through them. So yeah, by the time COVID hit, it was like 2020, and I'd been in business since 2008. It'd been 12 years, and I was like, I got this. Like, I'll get through this. There was never a time that I had to motivate the team, because the team went to disaster. And they were like, we're going to go out of business. And I was like, nope, this is what we're doing. We're going to pivot. This is how we're going to help people. We're going to pull in like home sewer. Like, we did it. So
Yeah.
yeah, COVID was, I was okay. So I would just be like, now when things come up, it's like, this is what I'm actually good at, is like the pressure of figuring things out and getting through hardships. Like, I'm a better boss and owner when I have difficulties, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You would say it, and our company as well was easy to pivot because a lot of stuff was already being done online too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you started doing too was like doing more live streams and like informing audiences, which is also why we're here now, is to expand our outreach as well, and give you guys what you want and desire.
Yes.
And then how do you ensure, this is more so about the clients, like how do you ensure they feel confident and supported and inspired while working with us and their experience with us?
Yeah, I would say that I had a business coach, and I then was trained in the same training program that she was to be a coach. So it is like life coaching comes into play around motivating them and bringing them through their fears, and making sure that they feel they're not scared, because a lot of it comes down to fear. So it's more of that kind of like life coaching, fashion therapy, I call it, but making sure that they have answers to all their questions, and like letting them, again, having them trust me to where like when they feel they're having problems or they're scared, they can talk to me about it so that we can move through it. So yeah, I think that that's it.
What would you say is like the biggest fear that designers tend to have?
Well, that they're gonna not succeed, no one's gonna like their stuff, that they'll never make it. And yeah, they're gonna, I think like everyone's fear is like, we're gonna end up homeless on the street, right?
Definitely. Yeah, that's definitely my fear.
You'll lose everything and end up homeless on the street. But like, that's no matter what, that's gonna be us here. So
yeah. And there's ways of navigating, like especially products, there's ways to like A/B test, especially one of our designers A/B tested on, I think it was like Facebook or something, like in Facebook groups. So there's ways to get, data and information and everything like that, so that when you release your product, you really know that it's, needed and desired in the market. So we definitely help designers navigate things in that way. And then, so within your connections in the fashion world, describe kind of how your relationships have influenced the growth of V.Mora. So you started on your own, and then you hired one employee, and how would you say those relationships have expanded?
Yeah, well, like I said, are we talking about vendors or employees or everything?
It could be both. It could be both.
Yeah. I mean, every single person that you meet, I remember someone telling me early on in my business, like there was someone starting a company similar to mine, and he said like, hey, in 10 years, if you guys are lucky, you'll be sitting having coffee together, talking about business. And that was like really important to me to like think about, like, because now like I do, like people that are quote my competitors are actually my friends. So we're close, we watch out for each other, we help each other. If there's a client that might be better for somebody else, or like if a client works with me for a long time and then goes to them, like I'm happy for them. So I would say realizing that like your competition isn't your competition, but they're like
Yeah.
advocates in the industry, and to have, friendships and you can help each other grow. So
Mhm.
I've always had that kind of theory since the beginning of my company is not everyone will have that same respect back. They might be like, your competition, get out of here. Like, we're not friends. Um, but for the most part, people are. And yeah, just the people that know what they're doing, they're going to stick around and you're going to see them for years, whether that's a
Yeah.
competitor or a past employee or a past boss. Like the industry isn't that big. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you definitely do see them around, whether it's at trade shows or whatnot, like, and, there's so many great friendships and relationships to make, like, whether it's with, fabric vendors in New York or California, like there's just so many of these relationships that you can build. And also, like, even as a designer, being able to refer someone else, oh, you're starting a line, you can go here, you could go there, here are fabrics that you like. So I think community, not just for V.Mora, not just for like the employees at V.Mora, but also our designers, it's
Yeah.
important too. So that's, we
All in it
also go
together.
ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to say we're all in it together.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
an easy industry, and
Yeah.
you need allies. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And we definitely try to give as much information as well, and we're trying to build a community here of giving you the information that you want and desire, whether it's from the blogs or the lives or anything like that. Like we're hoping to give that community to designers so they feel less alone too,
Yeah.
because sometimes designers can't always make it to the trade shows or to all the events and everything to network.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what advice would you give for budding designers as well as budding entrepreneurs that might be looking into getting into, the fashion design space or just the fashion industry or even like consulting and everything like that?
I would say there's like a balance between like doing enough research and doing too much research where you never jump in. But you definitely want to do like enough research where you've planned out a budget, how like however much money you have, like it's going to be able to get you through that first season.
Mhm.
But really sitting down financially to figure out, because whatever business you're in, whatever kind of fashion or whatever, you need a budget. Like it's
Yeah.
empowering to know like, hey, I'm not afraid that I'm dropping $5,000 on patterns because I put it in my budget and I'm prepared. So
Mhm.
creating a budget is really important. And finding a strong team. Your manufacturer can make or break you. So
Yeah.
realizing that relationship is so important, and like treating everyone with respect, because if your factory decides not to complete your production because for whatever reason, like no one's going to pick up that work that's half sewn. So
Yeah.
really just, yeah, knowing that these relationships are really important, and treating people well, and creating a budget. And yeah, I'd say create your budget, build your network, and then jump in.
Mhm. And your specialty, like we do have a production team, but your specialty
Yeah,
specifically is also in budgeting as well. So,
correct.
if you even, if you're watching right now and if you even want to take a look at how much things would cost, kind of depending on what product you want to release, like definitely go to Anna. She can work with you on a budget, even if it's like an hour consult or something
Yeah,
like that, just so you can get an idea, to see if it's something you want to jump into, because you want to, like our company, you want to have transparency going into it before you take that jump into everything, because sometimes designers, they're like, oh, I want to create this gorgeous evening wear collection, and they don't know how much it costs to do
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. They want to
Yeah,
get a clear idea of the cost of it. Yeah.
exactly. So, last question, looking back through the journey of V.Mora And then also your aspirations for the company's future. What would you say is ahead for the next like 5 to 10 years?
Well, I really want to be working online on these live streams so that I can help more designers in
Hmm.
more of like a compacted way. So stay tuned for programs that will launch that will be, more affordable than working with me one-on-one, maybe in a group setting. But yeah, like being able to help more designers in a group setting in an affordable way, and also continuing to work with the designers that I love to work with on one-on-one and doing the production management and all of that. But yeah, I would say we are on our way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is great. One more thing before we jump off, I'm just gonna quickly go through our offerings.
Yes.
So, Anna mentioned production management. So, our bread and butter of our company is actually managing production for you guys. So, what that entails is we'll go to the vendors, we'll communicate with them, we'll like move everything around. Like the day-to-day stuff is not a problem for you because we do it. So that's kind of our bread and butter of our company. And then do you want to talk about your strategic advising, Anna?
Yeah, so my strategic advising is working with me on one-on-one about creating a plan that's going to be cost effective and efficient from getting you from point A to point Z and like having a production in your hand. So it makes it so much easier to have someone like take you step by step, like this is how you do it and here are the people you do it with and tell them I said hi, and like just being able to give you like the insider information to like save decades off of building that network. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I do in the advising, as well as like creating a budget and working through your fears of being a designer. And you get all of
The
my
fashion therapy.
yes, fashion therapy,
Fashion
all of my
therapy.
templates, checklists, everything I've ever created to help. So that's all included.
Yeah. And you typically work with designers that have already released one collection already. So they're a little bit more established.
Yes.
And then our third kind of main offering is we also have startup coaching for people who are just getting in, and that is taught by our production managers. So they kind of walk you through everything that Anna kind of talked to you about, but just for the startups specifically.
Yep.
So any final words, any last things that you want to say for today?
No, this was great. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your
Oh,
question.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. It was
So
lovely to hear more about V.Mora.
we're going to be doing this every Wednesday at 12:30. We'll
Mhm.
have different topics. We're going to send out, like you'll know what the topic is beforehand. So if you have ideas, if you have requests,
Yeah,
reach out to us and we will definitely take the time to answer your questions.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Anna.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right.